On 6 June 1944, Allied forces landed on the Normandy coast of France in the largest amphibious invasion in history. The battle still matters because it helped open the road to the liberation of Western Europe. By then, Europe had already endured years of occupation, bombing, rationing, and fear. The invasion was meant to turn the war decisively against Nazi Germany. The Allies had to choose where to strike, while German commanders tried to guess the target and strengthen the coast. Every decision was shaped by deception, timing, and limited resources. In London, Washington, and elsewhere, leaders faced enormous pressure to succeed. A failed landing could have delayed liberation and cost tens of thousands more lives. The invasion force brought soldiers from the United States, Britain, Canada, and other Allied nations. Behind them came engineers, medics, supply crews, and a vast fleet of ships. Victory depended on logistics as much as combat. Fuel, ammunition, food, medical care, and replacement equipment all had to cross the Channel and keep moving inland. Morale mixed confidence with fear. Many troops had trained for months, yet they knew the beaches would be defended, and the first hours could decide everything. The route to Normandy began in crowded ports and staging camps across southern England. Men and machines waited under strict secrecy, while weather reports and tide tables were watched closely. The Channel crossing was short in distance, but heavy in anxiety. For many soldiers, it was the last quiet moment before the shoreline came into view. Normandy's beaches were backed by dunes, bluffs, and narrow exits inland. That terrain favored defenders, especially when combined with obstacles, mines, and pre-sighted fire. The weather added another layer of uncertainty. Cloud, wind, and rough water made the operation harder, but also helped the attackers achieve surprise. Allied planners relied on a broad deception effort to mislead German intelligence. The goal was to make the enemy expect an attack elsewhere and delay reinforcements. German defenses were spread along the coast, but not equally strong everywhere. Some units were seasoned, while others were under strength, poorly equipped, or positioned farther inland. The opening assault began before sunrise, with airborne troops dropping inland. Their task was to disrupt roads, bridges, and communications behind the beaches. At sea, the invasion fleet stretched to the horizon. Naval guns, escort vessels, and landing craft formed a moving wall of steel and spray. As the first waves neared shore, commanders faced the pressure point of the entire operation. Everything depended on getting men and vehicles off the water and onto the sand. Some beaches were hit by stronger resistance than others, and local conditions changed quickly. Small differences in currents, obstacles, and fire could reshape the landing hour by hour. Engineers and infantry worked together to clear exits, breach barriers, and create room for follow-on waves. Without those narrow openings, the invasion could have stalled on the shore. The decisive movement came when beachheads began to connect with inland advances. Once the Allies could push beyond the dunes, the German defense became harder to contain. Air power and naval fire kept pressing the defenders, while fresh troops and supplies kept arriving. The invasion was no longer a single landing, but a growing front. German commanders had to decide whether to hold the coast, counterattack, or withdraw. Delays in communication and uncertainty about the main landing area limited their response. By the end of the day, the Allies had gained footholds on several beaches, though not always as quickly as planned. The cost was heavy, but the invasion had survived its most dangerous hours. In the days that followed, the struggle shifted from beaches to hedgerows, villages, and narrow roads. Normandy's landscape slowed movement and demanded patience as much as firepower. The immediate aftermath brought relief, grief, and relentless work. The beaches had to be turned into supply gateways before the next phase of the campaign could begin. The invasion opened a long campaign that helped drive German forces back across France. It also showed how air, sea, and land power could be coordinated on an enormous scale. In the years that followed, the landings became a symbol of Allied cooperation and sacrifice. Veterans, families, and nations remembered the operation as a turning point in the war. Historians still debate details such as the exact balance of surprise, the effectiveness of deception, and the speed of German decision-making. The broad outcome is clear, but the fine points remain studied closely. They also qualify the story of inevitability. Success depended on weather, training, planning, and a chain of decisions that could easily have gone differently. Today, Normandy's beaches are quiet, but the terrain still carries memory. Tides, dunes, and open sand make it possible to imagine the scale of the operation. Visitors walk the coast, look across the water, and confront the distance the first waves had to cross. The landscape itself remains one of the strongest witnesses. The landings were not the end of the war, but they changed its direction. From that morning onward, the Allies had a permanent foothold in Western Europe. That foothold came from planning, sacrifice, and the willingness of thousands to move into danger together. The operation remains a study in coordination under extreme uncertainty. For many families, the memory is personal rather than abstract. Letters, photographs, and stories turned a vast military operation into individual acts of courage and endurance. The beaches also remind us that history is shaped by ordinary landscapes at extraordinary moments. A coast, a tide, and a narrow window of weather help decide the future. In that sense, Normandy is both a battlefield and a memorial. It asks viewers to remember the scale of the operation without losing sight of the people inside it. D-Day endures because it shows how fragile major history can be at the moment of action. A vast plan succeeded only when ships, weather, courage, and timing aligned.